Meteorologist Rich Marriott, and thank you for joining us on our first alert weather stream. We're going to take a look in detail what's happening weather-wise as yet another atmospheric river pushes through western Washington. There is some hope in the future, though, that things are going to dry out a little bit and we'll see a little bit more sunshine. I should probably right off the top apologize to kids and parents. The timing on that rain last night for trick-or-treating was not good at all. Around 4 or 5 o'clock, and then as we headed into it, it just kind of poured, and at least around my neighborhood, as soon as the kids gave up trick-or-treating, the rain stopped for a while. It seemed like Mother Nature was sticking her tongue at us, but it came back overnight, and if we check that Doppler radar, you can see it is still coming down out there. It is a wet morning around Puget Sound. Well, technical difficulties, which hopefully we've cleared up at this point. Have some audio back again. I don't know where we lost audio, but I was apologizing for all the rain during trick-or-treating last night. And the good news is, though, if we're checking the Doppler radar this morning, we've had steady rain overnight and a lot of it. But as we head towards a little bit later on this morning, we're going to see that turning to off and on showers over Puget Sound. You can see out there along the coast, things have already started to dry out a little bit. Of course, that's relative, but overall, after the steady, heavy rain, it will be nice to see things let up a bit. And as we head towards the next few hours, we're going to be looking for those winds to kick up a bit. But the good news is, and I want to emphasize this, much less in terms of wind speeds with this one. Wind gusts, maximum wind gusts with this system are going to run 15 to 20 miles per hour less than what we saw last Saturday. So you'll still see a few spotty power outages, but it shouldn't be widespread, and it won't bring down as many leaves, which I'll be happy about because I just finished cleaning up the ones from last Saturday. Checking our SchoolNet site so far, these are the maximum wind gusts we've seen there at Chinook Middle School, a 31 mile per hour wind gust. Aberdeen High School checking in with a 31 mile wind gust there. You can see these all happened in the last several hours, and they're in Tenino Elementary School, a 22 mile per hour wind gust. So overall, it's fairly damp out there, and if we check the rainfall, you can see since midnight, we've had almost an inch of rain there in Tukwila. Olympia checks in with over 8/10 of an inch, as does Bellingham. So, usually there's a disparity between sites up and down Puget Sound. This was a pretty general rainfall with everybody getting pretty well soaked overnight last night. Take a look out this morning. Everything does still look pretty wet, and for the interior western Washington, that rain still coming down. A wet-looking morning there in Port Angeles for sure. And Everett's Painfield, the runway is definitely getting a good washing overnight and continuing this morning. In Tacoma, wet roadways. You can see that flag there on the Tacoma Dome beginning to stretch out a little bit as those winds begin to pick up a little bit. And checking out at Westport, things actually looking a little bit better there. You could barely see out of the camera lens a while ago in this shot. And now that front's moved through there, it looks like the rain, the steady heavy rain, has kind of let up a little bit. Will be a while probably till we see a few sun breaks out there, but they'll get to those as we head towards just a little bit later on this morning. Looking at that 7-day forecast, looking forward, you can see today is the first alert weather day, and we're going to be seeing things quiet down later on today. Sunday's not looking bad at all. We're going to be looking for just a few showers and some sunshine out there. And we actually could get through Monday and Tuesday pretty much dry with a little bit of sunshine and catch our breath and finish cleaning up whatever leaves come down here in the next 12 hours or so. And then as we head towards mid to late week, it looks like some atmospheric rivers may start to push into the area once again as we head towards Thursday and Friday. Not looking quite as strong as what we had last week. That's going to be kind of our measure of what's a strong storm system, more like what we're seeing today. So we'll keep close watch on that as we get closer. And that should actually Turn to showers on Friday, and right now it looks like there's a possibility that a week from today, for the first time in a while, Saturday may not be a soaker. That's next Saturday, not this one, because we're still in the first clear weather day today until 6 o'clock this evening. That heavy rain will be around this morning. 30+ mile-per-hour wind gusts are possible. Rivers are on the rise, but we're not really expected to flood. They're in moving towards what they call action stage, which is a non-flooding stage, just that we're getting close to it and people should prepare. But in this case, it doesn't look like we're going to see those rivers go much above the action stage. One thing we have seen this morning, I experienced on my way in this morning, a lot of ponding on the roadways. There's a lot of drains out there that are definitely clogged by the leaves that have come down during the weekend, overnight last night, and more of those will be coming down during the day today. And so far, not seeing any spotty outages, but we could see those as those winds increase. But they're probably going to peak probably in the next few hours and then begin to gradually fall off as we head towards this afternoon. Weather Service does have a wind advisory out basically for all the lowlands of western Washington through 1 o'clock this afternoon, as those winds will be cutting back pretty dramatically after that and just slowly go down. And then also a flood watch out basically for Mason County and then for King County all the way up to Whatcom County along the west slopes of the Cascades. And that's just keeping an eye on that. Again, not really expecting those rivers to really get above their banks. So possibilities of the easy flooders like the Skokomish over there in Mason County, possibly the Skykomish near Skykomish for that matter, is another possibility. So, but only very, very minor flooding with that. Looking at the satellite image, you can see this storm system, if you recall the one from last week, not nearly as impressive. It just doesn't have that the water vapor connection to the subtropics that we had last weekend. So that's what supplies the energy to the storms, and it just doesn't have that bandwidth, as it were. There's still some showery air out there that will be moving through as we head towards tomorrow. But if we take a look at the from the Japanese satellite, you can see we're looking at kind of a break going on out there in the Pacific. We're going to be looking for things to take a little bit of a rest as we head towards later Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. That system you see forming out there just off Asia, that is going to move across the Pacific during the weekend. That's going to develop into the atmospheric river that may be bringing us the rain as we head towards probably Wednesday on in through the end of the week. And you can see that has that connection back down towards the subtropics in it. But again, not as impressive as what we saw last week. If we take a look at, this is from early last week before we got that atmospheric river through a week ago today. You can see, looking at that area, definitely that water vapor stretching all the way from just off Southeast Asia, all the way in a continuous band, actually, all the way into the Pacific Northwest. And that's one of the reasons that storm last weekend was so powerful. And more fortunately, we're not looking at that for this week. Looking at the computer models, you can see looking pretty wet for this morning. And then if we roll through to this afternoon, you see it's more off and on showers with some breaks in that. And then as we head into Sunday, we're just going to see a few scattered showers and should get a chance to get a few glimpses of sunshine mixed in there. And as we head into the first part of next week, we're kind of brushed by systems moving north and south of us, but nobody really moves through western Washington. So we should be partly sunny and essentially dry, it looks like, as we head towards Monday into Tuesday. But by late Tuesday, and especially as we head into Wednesday, we are going to start to see that rain move in from those atmospheric rivers. Several waves are going to move on up and probably move on through here and give us a pretty good soaking as we head towards the end of the week. At this point, looking at the computer models, we're not really seeing a whole lot of wind in those systems. They might be a little bit breezy, but overall not bad. And you can see what I was talking about as we head into Friday into Saturday at 5 p.m. We have some clouds over us, but it looks like we get a little break in the precipitation on a Saturday, just for a little bit of a change of pace. Taking a look at the snow totals from now on through tomorrow, you can see not much coming down there because pretty much it's, actually, I'm sorry, we're looking at rainfall totals between now and tomorrow. We're going to be adding to it less than we got overnight last night, or maybe comparable to it. But once we get past today on into tomorrow, you see the quantities really go up very, very slowly, and it should be fairly dry there through the first few days of next week before that rain moves back in again for later next week. If you're headed up to the mountains today, definitely take your rain gear with you. Looking out there at Paradise, that's a wet-looking scene compared to what we saw last week, and when we got that low elevation snow all the way down to Snoqualmie Pass at 3,000 feet, where they recorded 6 inches of snow at the snow summit up there at Snoqualmie Summit, rather, up at Snoqualmie Pass. A lot of that has rinsed away now with the rain that's coming down pretty much everywhere. There's a shot, this is our brand new camera up there at Snoqualmie Pass with that live stream. It's going to give us a great look at what highway conditions are. Actually, there's two of them, and the other one I have the ability to take a look at what's going on over at the ski areas as well. So this is going to be a real benefit to us to be able to track conditions across I-90, which we're getting into the time of year where they can be very changeable. And you can see all the spray those cars are throwing up as they go in front of the camera. Looking out there at Stevens Pass, also looking pretty wet this morning too, and that snow starting to get a little bit patchier along the edges of the highway. White Pass also very wet right now too, and we're looking for anywhere from 3 to 5 inches of rainfall up in the mountains, keeping things very wet. If we check those snow levels, today we're really around 9,000 feet this morning. It'll drop maybe to about 6,000 feet this afternoon, so averaging out at about 7 for the day. Tomorrow we will drop to 4,000 feet, but there really isn't much precipitation around, so we're not really going to accumulate anything of consequence out of that. And then, of course, we dry out Monday and Tuesday, and the snow levels work their way back up to 7,000 feet by later Tuesday. As we start to see the precipitation move back in again, you can see our snow levels go all the way up to 8,000 feet on Wednesday, stay pretty high as we head into Thursday. It may drop a little bit on Friday, but again, that's probably going to be with some drying. So we're not at the point yet where we're going to start to build that winter snowpack, which is not surprising. Usually it's after the middle part of November that we actually start to see the snow stick and stay through the winter. So nothing abnormal about this, so it isn't a sign of what's going to be happening for the winter. It's just Mother Nature's adjusting the weather patterns and gradually bringing in cooler air, which is what we're going to see as we head towards the end of the month. That little shot of cool air last week was just to get you excited so that you'll keep an eye on what's going on up there, and we'll keep you posted for when we actually start to see the potential of accumulating a little bit of snow that isn't up on the top of the volcanic peaks. Checking in terms of the snowfall, you can see if we look at that for today, not really seeing anything. And if we go on through tomorrow, see just fractional amounts, which may or may not show up at those areas. But really, a mountain highway passes pretty much all rain. Possible exception will be up there over North Cascades Highway, where both Rainy Pass and Washington Pass are above 5,000 feet. So they might see a little bit of light snow, but probably not much of quantity. By the time those snow levels come down, the precipitation will be pretty much over with up there as well. Take a look at the forecast then. If you are headed up across Snoqualmie Pass, basically looking at rain. It is going to let up, though. It's not going to be as heavy as we head towards midday and this afternoon, so a little bit better driving conditions. You might run into a little bit of patchy fog, which is definitely not unusual across Snoqualmie Pass. And see those temperatures this afternoon getting all the way up into the mid-40s, so definitely not ski weather unless it would happen to be in springtime. Take a look at the high temperatures today. You can see around Puget Sound, we're actually running a little bit above normal. We should be in the upper 50s and low 60s just about everywhere, and then we'll cool just a little bit as we head into Sunday with the temperatures dropping back to the mid-50s. Taking a look at that 7-day forecast. Okay, first alert weather day today, and that'll be dropping off after about 6 o'clock this evening, and things will be pretty quiet overnight tonight into tomorrow. Partly sunny on Sunday, just a few showers around mid-50s for the highs. Monday and Tuesday, partly sunny. There might be some patchy morning fog those Tuesdays. I don't think that it's going to be much of a problem for that morning commute, but there may be a little bit of that scattered around the area. As we head into Wednesday, we're going to be looking for that rain to start moving back in again, maybe as early as late Tuesday, but it's going to be a partly sunny day for Election Day. And then as we head on into Wednesday and Thursday, we're going to look for rainy and breezy weather, which should last all the way into the weekend, with those snow levels coming down a little bit over the weekend, but still staying fairly high. We are going to be taking a look at some historic windstorms coming up in our next segment. We're going to look at some of the bigger ones that we've seen over the last 50 years, and also take a look at our falling back tonight as we go off daylight saving time. What time will the sunset be tomorrow night? We'll be back in just a minute. Stay with us.
New data about safety and effectiveness can come to light. The FDA keeps track of that new data, which can come from patients, drug makers, or healthcare professionals, and may include information about negative reactions to prescriptions. Based on this information, the FDA may recommend that the drug maker update the drug labeling by adding warnings or updated dosage information. Changes could also include the FDA requesting a drug recall. Find the answers at fda.gov/drugs.
We're with Liam after his 4th military move, when being new is starting to get old. We're with Tara during the holidays, when she misses home the most. We're with all service members and their families who need connection, comfort, and a home away from home. Are you with them? Learn more at uso.org today.
Well, welcome back to our First Alert Weather Day stream this morning, taking a look at what's going on with this atmospheric river moving through the area. As we told you, we're expecting things to improve actually as we head towards a little bit later on this morning, and especially this afternoon. If we check out that Doppler radar once again, you can see that back edge that I'm talking about. It's basically where the cold front is. That's moving through the Olympic Peninsula right now. It's already cut off the steady rainfall along the coast. That is going to swing through Puget Sound probably as we head towards noontime, and then it's going to leave behind just some off and on showers as we head into the afternoon. And we'll see those winds picking up here over the next several hours, probably peak around midday. And again, we're looking at the wind gusts, most places 20 to 30 miles per hour. A few may get into the 30 plus. So 15 to 20 miles per hour better than less than what we saw last Saturday. Just for reference, we did have a 57 mile per hour gust there at SeaTac for last Saturday's storm. Today, we'll be lucky to get to about 37 miles per hour there, so definitely a much weaker system. So fortunately, a little bit less impact than what we expected. One reminder, I want to take a look there at that rain shadow. You can see we talk about the rain shadow all the time, that strong southwesterly flow. That rain is kind of squeezed out of the airstream as it moves over the Olympics. It drops it in the Olympics where they're going to be seeing 3 to 5 inches, and it drops down and dries as it heads out there to the northeast towards Everett and Mount Vernon. Now, we had a situation where you got a couple inches of rain yesterday evening on the windward slope, the southwest slopes of the Olympics, but only got 1/100 of an inch in Port Townsend. So it's a really dramatic, one of the biggest and strongest rain shadows in the world for that matter, which is pretty amazing when with all the climatological differences and oddities that we have around Western Washington. Take a look at something important tonight. We go off of daylight savings time. We fall back an hour at 2 a.m. The good news is we gain an hour of sleep tonight. That's a huge plus. But we also are going to be seeing those sunsets moving to before 4 o'clock or before 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And the plus side, again, our sunrise happens a little bit earlier as well. But remember to set your clocks back and change the batteries in your smoke detectors. Also a good idea at this point. Take a look at those sunset times. You see the change. Yesterday and today we're right around 5:53 for that sunset. And then as we head towards tomorrow afternoon, we're going to be looking at 4:49 for the sunset. So that's the time of year people do have troubles with it, but I like to think of it as the cozy time of the year, the cozy season. And then as we get to December 7th through 13th, that's when we have our earliest sunsets. The sun actually drops below the horizon. Should you actually be able to see the sun at all through the clouds, it drops below the horizon at about 4:17. But we make a pretty good return as we get back to 7 o'clock sunsets as we go back to daylight savings time as we head towards springtime, which is nice to think about. Checking the sunrise times, you can see 7:53 yesterday and close to that today. And then tomorrow we're going to be looking for that sunrise to take place at 6:55. So close those drapes if you want to sleep in tomorrow morning, if the light's going to concern you. Take a look at those wind gusts so far from the system. Not that strong, really. We've seen a wind gust from our school net size, 31 miles per hour there in Lacey at Chinook Middle School, Aberdeen High School, 31 miles per hour, and Tenino Elementary School, 22 miles per hour. We haven't seen much change in those wind gusts, you can see, in the last hour or two, so we may have maxed out in those areas, but we expect to see most of the maximum winds taking place here in the next couple of hours as we head on towards late morning or right around midday. We take a look, in fact, at those wind speeds for a batch of cities as we move through the day. You can see at 10 o'clock this morning, right around when we started the show, 36 mile per hour gust there at Seattle. Keep in mind there was a 57 mile per hour gust with that system last week, and Olympia 32 miles per hour, 36 there in Shelton, Bellingham not quite as strong. It isn't as strong for the northern counties as it usually is, and Everett a 36-mile-per-hour wind gust. Running that on as we head towards through the morning, probably maximum winds occurring pretty much right around now, and then as we head into the afternoon, it will start to diminish. Still a little breezy out there, but the winds will start to back off and then gradually diminish as we head towards the evening. And then overnight tonight, the winds essentially are going to go away as we head into Sunday, and it'll be fairly light winds during the day on Sunday. So overall, we should be in pretty good shape on Sunday afternoon. Take a look at our history of windstorms. This is the time of year, really, October, November, December is when we oftentimes see these windstorms. Of consequence, well, of course, October 12th, 1962, the Columbus Day storm, that's the grandfather of all windstorms. It gusts 80 to 100 miles per hour. Billions of board feet of timber was knocked down out along the coast and through a good portion of the interior of western Washington. Extensive wind damage with that. It was a storm. It was actually the remnants, or it was associated with the remnants of a typhoon out in the Pacific that probably is a very strong atmospheric river that swept that up, and they kind of complemented each other and brought that system in through, and it tracked just the perfect track for the maximum number of winds through Puget Sound. I was still growing up in California at that point, so I wasn't here for that one, but the rest of them I've actually been here for, and the 50 years of forecasting here for western Washington. February 13th, 1979, 80-mile-per-hour wind gusts, and importantly, the Hood Canal Bridge broke apart. They weren't able to get it open. They estimate they had 120-mile-per-hour wind gusts because of the channeling of the winds through the canal right there really increased them, and it basically broke apart. Parts of it floated to the shore, and we ended up there for that summer. We actually had a ferry that went all the way from downtown Seattle to Port Townsend to get around that closure until they were able to rebuild the bridge and put it back into service. Now, November 24th, 1983, that is the Thanksgiving Day storm that a lot of longtime Northwest residents will remember. Huge windstorm on Thanksgiving Day, widespread power outages. The big story was nobody that had electric stoves could cook their turkeys. There was a lot of people who ended up with raw turkeys as they headed into their Thanksgiving celebration, and there was a lot of people being very clever about how they ended up cooking their turkeys, and it was a very memorable day. For years afterwards, I had people asking me whenever we got anywhere near Thanksgiving, is there any chance of a windstorm on Thanksgiving? It left a lot of people traumatized. We take a look. November 25th, 1990. Not a big windstorm at all, just kind of a standard issue storm, only 30-plus mile-per-hour wind gusts. But the I-90 bridge was under construction. It was being refurbished, as a matter of fact. And some of the pontoon hatches were left open by accident. Combination of high lake levels, 30-mile-per-hour winds, and pretty stormy weather, all in all combined to fill the pontoons and sink part of the bridge, the eastbound portion of the bridge, down into Lake Washington. Then we had that closure on for quite a few months after that as they tried to rebuild the I-90 bridge. January 20th, 1993, that's the Inauguration Day storm. That one kind of sprung up really kind of out of nowhere. We weren't expecting that strong of winds, but gave us up to 70-mile-per-hour winds. There were widespread power outages, and there were some injuries with that system as well. That's one that a lot of people remember. And then December 15th, 2006, near 70-mile-per-hour winds with that one. It also, 1 million people lost power. There were also several fatalities. Right after we had that windstorm, there was an Arctic outbreak around western Washington, which brought in some really cold air for about a week, where our daytime highs struggled to get above freezing. Overnight lows were down in the 20s. It was just really kind of miserable weather in there, and millions of people had no power to warm themselves with. So a lot of people had to move out of their homes into hotels, and we did have, unfortunately, several fatalities with that. We're going to take a look, an update of what's going on weather-wise around western Washington as this less powerful system moves on out of here, and we'll have that coming up right after a break. Stay with us.
New data about safety and effectiveness can come to light. The FDA keeps track of that new data, which can come from patients, drug makers, or healthcare professionals, and may include information about negative reactions to prescriptions. Based on this information, the FDA may recommend that the drug maker update the drug labeling by adding warnings or updated dosage information. Changes could also include the FDA requesting a drug recall. Find the answers at fda.gov/drugs.
Well, thank you for sticking with us here on our First Alert Weather Day stream. We're taking a look at the storm that's moving through. We just looked at some of the more historic storms, which fortunately this one is not. It is much weaker than the storm we had last weekend for that matter, but still it's been an inconvenience, especially for trick-or-treating last night. That was really poorly timed. And if you have outdoor activities today, or probably if you're coming back from a very wet soccer game with your kids, you may be happy to know that the rain is going to be letting up, especially if you have a game with the kids this afternoon. But see the back edge of that front working its way through the coast. That's turning off the heavy, steady rain we've been having overnight, and it'll be replaced by just some off and on showers and probably some sun breaks by mid to late afternoon. That's the good news. Our winds, well, in some places they seem to have already peaked out and considerably less than what we saw last week. And see from our SchoolNet sites, the low 30s seems to be what we've seen, but we've seen some places around the Sound that have gotten into the mid 30s, but that's in comparison to seeing places around the Sound getting into the 50+ mile per hour range last weekend. So not seeing nearly the problems. And you see that rainfall, it's not changing much now, as that rain should be starting to let up a little bit, not be quite as heavy, and it will change to off and on showers by around midday or so. And basically a gray morning as we look through the tower cams, keep hoping to see we might have a little bit of a sun break out there somewhere, but not seeing much of that going on. At Westport, out along the coast, the front has moved through. That rain actually has let up from what they had earlier this morning when that lens was totally coated with the rainfall and in pretty good shape at this point with that gradually diminishing. So happy to see that. Our First Alert 7-day forecast today, First Alert Weather Day today. We do see things really quiet down as we head into Sunday. It's going to be partly sunny. There will be some sunshine mixed in there and only a few showers around the area. And we may have actually 2 full dry days for Monday and Tuesday. It looks like we'll see maybe a little bit of patchy morning fog. Rain could start to move in as early as Tuesday night, but then we get another atmospheric river or two that are going to be moving in later in the week. They don't look like they're that strong. They're probably more comparable to what we saw with this system rather than one last week. That's going to turn us wet for Wednesday and Thursday and on into Friday, it looks like, with those temperatures staying mostly in the mid to upper 50s. And as we've been talking, snow levels are going to be up most of the time above 5,000 feet, so not really good for building that winter snowpack. So First Alert Weather Day today until 6 p.m. tonight. Things should have pretty much calmed down and started to drain off by then. We had that heavy rain this morning and those gusty winds. There is a lot of ponding on the roadways, only minor river rises. It looks like it'll stay below flood stage. And hopefully, we haven't had reports of power outages yet, and hopefully we won't have any, it looks like. So we should be in pretty good shape once we get past today, it looks like. And overall, it looks like that wind advisory drops from the National Weather Service at 1 o'clock this afternoon as well. So we're in pretty good shape. And that's going to wrap us up on this live stream. Hopefully, it's giving you a good idea of what to expect here for the remainder today and on into next week, and a little look at the historic perspective of windstorms around Puget Sound.
New data about safety and effectiveness can come to light. The FDA keeps track of that new data, which can come from patients, drug makers, or healthcare professionals, and may include information about negative reactions to prescriptions. Based on this information, the FDA may recommend that the drug maker update the drug labeling by adding warnings or updated dosage information. Changes could also include